Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading White Women Get Ready, How Healing Post-Traumatic Mistress Syndrome Leads to Anti-Racist Change by Amanda K. Gross. I'm reading this book for my own practice of deconstructing the delusion of white supremacy, and if you are interested in reading along with me, you can get copies here. This is a chapter called Up Close and Personal. Boys will be boys. That amazing thought-stopping cliche of the cult of patriarchy. Moments after writing the above question is gentrification helps describe the fruits, the symptoms of the problem, but I'm not interested in the I'm interested in the root causes. How do versions of this pattern keep replicating? And moreover, why do we keep running away? Moments after writing the above question, I had the lapse in judgment to hop over to social media for a break. Thanks to the highly sophisticated artificial intelligence of algorithms, I've spent most of my social media existence blissfully unaware of my father's posts. Mostly, he's chosen to email me with articles he wants me to read or thinks I can connect to. I don't doubt his good intentions, but since he is someone who believes in a biblically endorsed patriarchy, what he sends me is inevitably triggering. My inbox has served as the front line of our boundary wars. Over the years, I have asked him repeatedly not to send me articles, even if he thinks they might be well received. To his credit, he has slowly worked to send me fewer links, and has also exercised restraint with some of his more recent shares. Articles about the anagram has become a safe zone. To my credit, I have worked on healing my victim mentality, giving less power to the triggers, and allowing myself the time and space to read his DMs, only if and when I choose, and then deciding if and how I want to respond, with the support of a very skilled therapist. The Enneagram Safe Zone seemed to be working, but then I made the mistake of liking one of his more neutral social media posts, and soon after, clicking on a more inflammatory one that the site artificially thought I'd like, or hate, or at least have a strong reaction to, which I did. That was several weeks before I typed the question, why do we keep running away? And then took a break to pull up my feed. The first thing that popped up on my homepage was an article my father had posted titled Hard Men in a World of Softness, because soft is not what God called men to be. I give this post a 5-star trigger warning due to rampant homophobia, misogyny, and harmful, very weird theology, and highly discourage your Googling of it. I took the bait and clicked on the article and was rewarded by the mix of disturbed, concerned, enraged, and sick to my stomach feelings that usually happen when I read what my dad has been reading. However, this post was right on time. Reading it gave me a visceral answer to my question of why we run. The article demonstrated almost verbatim the patriarchy's first act of violence, as quoted by bell hooks in chapter 2. In it was a rant against any form of masculine softness, described through examples of church leaders who didn't hunt, men who cared about shirt thread count and the theater, and pastors who were interested in theological precision, along with a warning to the ways Christian institutions are attracting effeminate leadership, particularly focused on condemning intellectualism, potters, beards, skinny jeans, and, no surprise here, being gay. The article reads as a contemporary litany of the ways men should engage in acts of psychic mutilation, killing off the emotional parts of themselves and of other men. Biblical masculinity, according to the blogger and a person he interviewed, is about unsentimentally facing and causing violence, including both literal and metaphorically pulling the trigger. Biblical men repent of any softness and pursue their own godliness with a holy violence, including replacing those men in church leadership who show effeminate traits. I'm assuming traits like empathy, compassion, and pastoral care, or those who are repulsed at the violence of the manly men who embrace it. These casual references to masculine violence as God ordained are terrifying, the homophobia and misogyny enraging. To understand that this was just one 1,200-word piece among thousands that my dad has read and agreed with continues to feel devastating. That these are sentiments he's expressed in many ways throughout my life has festered a deep soul wound. Clearly, the self-hateful opinions promoted in the post are harmful and not something I particularly want to be around. Why would I want to be in a relationship with someone who thinks God has made them superior to me? Being in a relationship with hard men is, well, hard. Which brings me back to the question, why do we keep running away? I run because of the pain. After years of working up the courage to tell my father that a peer of mine at church and a close family friend molested me by touching me inappropriately and making me feel creepily uncomfortable over it several years as a child and preteen, my father dismissed it. We were talking on the phone, me in Pittsburgh, him in Atlanta, but the distance was much farther than the miles between us. That's just normal behavior for boys, he said. I wasn't necessarily surprised by his words, but they were still painful to hear and are even now painful to remember. When I hung up the phone, I wondered if there was still a part of me that was holding out hope for his validation of my pain. I guess hard men don't acknowledge their children's pain when it challenges the hardness of other men or boys. Or perhaps the acknowledgement I've been seeking might mean he'd have to acknowledge his failures to protect his daughter, putting into question his own interpretation of his masculinity. This wasn't the first time I shared with my dad about how I've experienced harm. Just as the article promises and celebrates, his masculinized toughness has been successful at killing off many things, including, among other things, my trust and the possibilities of us having a deep, authentic relationship. Almost always, when one person reports abuse, there are many others in the community who have experienced it, including the person responsible for the abuse. And here I want to make a specific connection to the ways whiteness and patriarchy have impacted our family structures. While white communities aren't the only ones who harbor deep cycles of child sexual abuse, but white people have been able to pathologize abuse in other racial communities while professing the innocence and exception of it when it happens in our own. There's a particular racialized way that toxic masculinity has been constructed and propagated, and a particular racialized way that we white women have fortified it. But first, let's start with the advent of homegrown hard men. And we'll read that part tomorrow.